This episode of Ink Master wasn't nearly as conversation heavy or dramatic as the past few weeks, but it definitely leveled out the playing field in an interesting way. Let's do some shop talk. Episode 6 of Ink Master is titled Up in Flames, and for one person in particular, it definitely went that way. Before I get into this though, I want to say that to my new subscribers, Curly Danny and Tattoo My Life, thank you, and you're awesome. Tattoo My Life also left me an awesome comment and actually engaged in the conversation, and I super appreciate that. That's the funnest part of this for me, so thank you, you rock. Also, this video is probably going to be a day or two later than it usually is. I'm so sorry about that, but I had some family stuff come up. And my family comes first. Sorry about it. But as I said, this episode was fairly light for the most part. Not a lot of drama, not a lot of twists and turns. Pretty cut and dry Ink Master, and I actually was kind of relieved by that. And it evened out the scoreboard in a little bit. But before I get there, let's recap how we got there and break it down. So the group is debriefing after Steve's elimination, and an Ink Master has already been taken out of the competition. And a whole new respect for Angel, as a lot of these men's are eating their words and reaping some karma after they tried to throw her under the bus. And I love that. Creepy Jason, though, is not shaken at all, and his confidence seems to be a-okay. And it should be, because again, they told him that he's the most consistent artist in the competition so far. And I would agree with that. So I think for the most part, he has nothing really to worry about, at least not right now. So then we go to the Flash Challenge. Katie is still not feeling well and skips the Flash Challenge. I kind of want to know what was happening, but none of my business. But for the Flash Challenge, they are told that this episode, they will be tested on contrast. And working in teams of 2, they have to create a high contrast masterpiece using gunpowder, which will be ignited and burned onto canvases. So the teams are randomly assigned via skulls, and here's what we have. Team 1 is DJ and Anthony. Team 2 is Tony and Jason, which neither one are excited to be working together. Team 3 is Angel and Bob, and Team 4 is Pawn and Gian. So let's get right into this. Tony and Jason didn't want to work together, but they're oddly working pretty well together, which was pretty cool. And Pawn and Gian now are best friends forever again? What happened? They're telling each other they'll protect each other, that they have each other's back forever. Mwah, mwah, mwah. It's so cute. But Gian was a little shaky about Pawn last episode, especially when Pawn, 1, sided with the Ink Masters, and then 2, went off the rails when he was confronted about it and told everybody that he has no alliances. He's only looking out for himself. Now Pawn and Gian are back? I just thought it was weird. I don't know. But breaking down what everybody did with their gunpowder art, which was really cool actually to see, I gotta say, before we get into this, all 4 did great. I thought these were all really cool, and it's a really cool Flash Challenge, and everybody's art here turned out really awesome. So Angel and Bob did a werewolf, and I thought this was really cool. Compared to a lot of the other ones, I wouldn't have voted for it, but it still looks really awesome as an art piece. DJ and Anthony did a skull with candles in front of it, which got rave reviews from the judges, and it is really cool. But, and maybe I'm alone here, but the skull gets a little lost in the middle for me, and so honestly, this wasn't my favorite by any means, even though it's really cool still. I don't know. It's just not for me, I guess. Tony and Jason did a wizard, and I thought this was fantastic. This one was my favorite. I thought this turned out impeccable. There's a ton of contrast in there, and a ton of textures, and it just, as a design, is amazing, and so creative. Pawn and Gian did a tattoo-style Sacred Heart, and I thought it was all right. I mean, it's cool still like the others, but it honestly was my least favorite, which then makes what happens next very awkward. Again, everybody did well and everybody got great critiques, but The judges chose Pawn and Gian's Sacred Heart. What? I extremely disagree. At this point, is their mission just to give Gian Flash Challenge wins? I'm so confused by this. They were talking about how much contrast was in it, but I didn't think they actually had more contrast than any of the other teams. And definitely not more than that Skull and Candles or that Wizard. This was wildly confusing to me. But it is what it is. So Pawn and Gian, again, get skull picks for everyone during the Elimination Tattoo. Which brings us to the Elimination Tattoo. First of all, Katie's back. Love seeing her here. Her energy is fantastic. I wish she was doing better in the competition, but it's great to see her here. So the Elimination Tattoo this week is a tattoo that has to be done in Ryan's specialty style of black and gray, showing contrast in bug tattoos. And as a side note, I actually really liked that they highlighted Ryan for this Elimination Tattoo. I was worried when she was brought in as a judge that they wouldn't respect her as much, especially with the rest of the judges all being men and with her being a former competitor. And she's a winner. But again, it's that weird dynamic where you also have Ink Masters that they clearly love competing again. One of them who's won twice. Ryan's only won once, you know? So it's like a weird thing. And again, I need to bring this up again, but misogyny is always a problem in this competition. So I like, especially after how heavy it was last week amongst the competitors, I was happy to see the judges really highlight and respect Ryan as a judge. But then Master of Chaos Dave shows up, as he always does, and tells them that that is not all. But in addition to contrast, they're going to also be tested on contrast depending on placement, which for this challenge is the throat. One of the most difficult places to tattoo, and painful, by the way. I would not tattoo on a throat. I would not have my throat tattooed. Just saying. I have tattoos myself. A throat tattoo, not on my list, honestly. So this is wild. Everybody's nervous, and they rightfully should be. So that brings us to the canvases. So Pawn and Gian get to assign canvases, and I think they're partially being strategic, but you can tell neither one of them wants to do this either. So it's kind of like they're screwed either way. So for the most part, this is a fairly even distribution, except for like a couple people. So the canvases end up being as follows. A beetle with flowers and a moon. That went to Gian. Scorpion with the sun went to Jason. A dragonfly went to Tony. Wolf spider went to DJ. Bee caught in a web went to Angel. Black widow with florals and a heart and was specified as needing to be extremely feminine went to Katie. A grasshopper with geometric shapes went to Anthony. A death moth went to Pawn. And a butterfly went to Bob. Now, immediately after, Pawn is visibly worried, which again is weird because he got to choose. But also, I think he thought he chose the easiest and then realized there is no easiest. And now he's freaking out. And I think, especially after last week, like the cracks are really showing in Pawn. Suddenly, after doing fairly okay, mainly, I think, thanks to his alliance with Gian, was doing all right, but now the wheels are falling off on Pawn. I'm not going to go into the walkthrough, really, because, again, it was a tough challenge kind of for everyone, and nothing really stood out to me as, like, noteworthy or crazy. Some people weren't sitting well. Some people were freaking out about it. It's just one of those things that I felt like across the board, nothing really spectacular happened like as they were tattooing. So moving on, let's get right into the critiques. So first up was Angel. She did the bee in the web. I love it. They didn't like the web she did behind it, and it is kind of a basic web, but I don't mind it. I get why she was critiqued on it, but for the most part, I think this tattoo looks awesome. I would wear it, not on my throat, but I would wear this tattoo. DJ's wolf spider, he definitely did a better web, and I'm sure that's way more kind of a style of web that they were looking for, an angel's tattoo. But his tattoo is really awesome too. I thought this was great. Anthony did the grasshopper. This was really strong to me. I thought this was definitely a swing back compared to last week. I don't know that it was able to top a lot of the other tattoos in this bunch, but he definitely, I think, redeemed himself with this one. Creepy Jason did the scorpion. He didn't get great critiques, but he also didn't get bad critiques. Again, fairly consistent. And that's really impressive, considering what a challenging place and tattoo it was. So I don't think it was a bad week for Jason either. I think he's doing just fine. Tony did a dragonfly. This was probably my favorite of the day. This is a gorgeous tattoo. And the super dark black outline that he used on the outside of it, so great. I would wear the hell out of this tattoo. I think it's so just gorgeous. And what a way to show contrast, because he not only showed contrast in the dragonfly and all of the pieces therein, but also by creating a harsher border, which I just thought was so creative and impressive. I loved this. Katie's Black Widow. I think it's exactly what the canvas wanted, to be fair. And so I think the canvas is happy with it, but it's definitely not holding up to the others. And I can't disagree with the critiques she got for it based on the challenge. But again, I don't think it's a bad tattoo. I do think the florals are like an afterthought, but again, I think they're just there because the canvas wanted them and didn't want to budge on them. And the style of tattoo is very Katie, but I also think, again, that's what the canvas had in mind, and that's what she wanted to provide the canvas, which I actually really respect, because at the end of the day, they're the person that's wearing it, but they also signed up to be a canvas on the show, and Katie has to meet the challenge, and unfortunately, I just don't think she did that. And that's kind of a blow, because for a minute, she was hiking back up the ladder, and I think she's in trouble big time coming up in the next couple weeks. Gian did a beetle. He got really great critiques, and I didn't think it was bad. And I promise I don't have a bias against Gian, but this wasn't my favorite, and I thought this was like whatever. Good show of contrast, but again, just like the Flash challenge, I didn't necessarily think that it outshined anybody else's use of contrast. So I don't know, but he got really great critiques for it. Bob did a butterfly. I think it's pretty. The contrast is nice in it, but it's not great to me, especially compared to some of the others, but he did okay. Pawn did the death moth, and this is rough for me. In contrast, and as a tattoo. When I first looked at it, I was like, oh, it's not bad. But then the more they had it on the screen, I was like, wait a minute, because it gets crooked really fast, which I thought was weird. And then they pointed out the antenna and the asymmetry up top, and I was like, yeah, this is getting weird. I would not wear it. And I'd be a little disappointed if I were the canvas, to be honest. Especially the more I look in the mirror, look at it, probably not loving it. So people who placed high were Bob, Gian, and Tony, which I think is fair. I think it's okay. But where it went weird for me is the tattoo of the day. It went to Gian? What? Again, no problem with Gian for the most part, and he's played a very strong game. But to me, I don't get how like someone like Tony at least got more votes. I don't understand how the vote wasn't at least closer to someone else. But to across the board be like, yeah, Gian's got it. I don't think so. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. But I just don't think so. And I personally would have given it to Tony. I think he deserves it. But whatever. So, of course, everybody has to go into the back while the judges kind of figure out who they're roasting today. And Katie and Angel and Jason are now meeting. And they know Katie is probably going to end up in the bottom, and they really want Pawn to go home, so they're preparing to fight, which I think is smart. Man, Katie, man. Keep rooting for her. But here we are. So then they're brought back, and we find out that there is no bottom 3. It's only the bottom 2, which I think was weird. So there isn't even like a person who just kind of plays low. It's just the bottom 2. Like one of these 2 is going home. And yeah, that was fascinating. So Katie and Pawn are fighting it out. Gian is trying to save Pawn, which was adorable. But it becomes like this frenzy. The judges are kind of arguing about it. The contestants are arguing about it. Katie and Pawn are arguing about it. This was wild. Ultimately, though, they end up voting for Pawn to go home. And I would agree. If anyone that I'm biased over, it's probably Katie. I think she's hilarious. She is a light. I need her there. I wouldn't have been upset if it was Katie, because again, I mean, the way she's been performing, it is kind of what it is. But I definitely think Pawn's wheels were falling off and the cracks were showing. And man, that tattoo, I would at least wear probably Katie's tattoo, or at least compliment someone else who was wearing it. But Pawn, man, nope. So I think this was the right thing to do. I really do. So before I go into how that affects all of the statistics and the scoreboard and all of that good stuff, let's see how everybody else reacted to it. It's time for some top tweets. All right. We only have a few challenges left, which is nuts. But here's how everything shook out according to the point system, which then impacts the scoreboard. So here's where the interesting changes take place. So Gian is not budging from this first place spot. I really honestly think he has a strong chance of winning the whole thing. Creepy Jason and Bob now, interestingly enough, are tied for second and third place. Again, Creepy Jason being extremely consistent. So even though Creepy Jason hasn't officially won a challenge, but again, we don't give challenge wins every single episode, so I only take so much weight into that. Creepy Jason, I think, also has a strong chance of at the very least making it to the finale. And I definitely think Bob is there as well, with some of the Ink Masters, I think, slowly climbing their way to the top as well. It'll be interesting to see how the next few episodes change this. Angel is in 4th place. I'm really glad she got a challenge win, and she did all right this time around. I hope that she does better in the next few episodes, because it would be cool to at least see her in the finale as well. DJ is in 5th. Tony is now in 6th. Anthony, redeeming himself, has at least climbed back up to 7th place, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but he had a pretty dismal start, so I think that's actually pretty impressive. Katie, though, rocking it now in last place for the people who are still active in 8th. And I think, Katie, you're in danger, girl. She has really got to step it up. For the most part, I mean, she's been bottoming out in this competition the majority of the season at this point, and it's getting harder and harder to ignore. I really don't think she's going to be able to fight her way out of the bottom again if she ends up there. So I'm really worried about her next week, to be honest. Pawn, of course, now takes the 9th place spot as he is officially eliminated from the competition, with all of the other eliminated contestants right there behind him. Fascinating stuff. Again, I'm expecting the next few weeks to be absolutely wild, and we still technically have too many people left in the competition. So maybe we'll get a double elimination at some point, unless they're going to take 5 people to the finale. I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff happening. And that's also assuming they plan on taking 4 people to the finale. It's going to be interesting as we close out the final half of the season here. But with all of that laid out, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Again, I'd love to actually have this conversation with people. It's so fun. Also, subscribe today so you don't miss out as I continue to roll these breakdowns out. And in the meantime, maybe you go out and get inked yourself. And then I'll see you next time when we can do some more shop talk.